I have lived through 70 years of North Carolina summers, and I have learned that the hottest fires do not always burn with a visible flame. Sometimes, they smolder deep inside a mother who realizes her child is being hunted by the very people who promised to love her. Before I go any further, let me say something honest. If this opening hit you in any way, subscribe to Voices of Emily so you stay here with me for the rest of this story. I am putting a part of myself into these words, and I want you to walk through it with me. And when you can, leave a comment telling me what this moment reminded you of. Your voice matters here. Then tap the like button so this story reaches someone who might need it more than we know. I remember that Tuesday afternoon at the Willow Creek Mall like it was etched into my very soul with a branding iron. I had gone there to find a specific shade of lilac yarn for a sweater I was knitting for my granddaughter, little Maya. The air in the mall was thick with the scent of sugary pretzels and expensive perfume. A world away from the quiet, wood-paneled retirement I had earned after 33 years of fighting for property rights in the courtrooms of Charlotte. I was passing the food court when a flash of movement caught my eye. A woman sitting alone at a small, circular table near the back exit. She was wearing a faded blue uniform that looked 2 sizes too large, and her head was bowed low over a handful of copper pennies and silver dimes. My heart did a strange, painful stutter in my chest because I recognized the slope of those shoulders. It was my Nia. I stood frozen for a moment, my shopping bag heavy in my hand. My Nia was a woman who had always moved with the grace of a queen and the sharp mind of a lead pediatric nurse. 2 years ago, her father and I had helped her purchase a brand new Tahoe, a vehicle that matched the beautiful brick home she shared with her husband, Terrence. She used to walk with her head high, her hair perfectly pressed, and her spirit unshakable. But the woman I saw now was a shadow of that daughter. Her hair was pulled back into a messy, frantic knot, and those tattered tennis shoes on her feet looked like they had walked 1,000 miles of sorrow. Have you ever seen someone you love so dearly look so completely defeated that you almost did not recognize your own blood? I walked toward her, my footsteps echoing on the tile. And the closer I got, the more my stomach churned. She did not even notice me until I was standing right over her. "Nia," I said softly, my voice trembling just a little. When she looked up, the light from the skylight hit her face, and I nearly let out a cry of pure agony. The dark circles under her eyes looked like bruises, and her skin had a gray, sallow tint that no amount of exhaustion could explain. She looked at me with a flash of pure, unadulterated terror, before she realized who I was. "Hi, Mama," she whispered, and her hand moved instinctively to cover the pile of coins on the table. It was a gesture of shame that broke my heart into a million pieces. I sat down across from her, ignoring the way she tried to sit up straighter and pull her dignity around her like a tattered cloak. "Where is little Maya?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It was Wednesday, the day Nia usually spent taking my granddaughter to the park or the library. Terrence and his mother, Beatrice, took her to the zoo, Nia said, her eyes darting toward the mall entrance. They wanted some grandmother-granddaughter bonding time. She tried to smile, but it was a brittle, fragile thing that fell apart before it even reached her cheeks. "And where is your car, Nia? Why are you sitting here counting pennies for a cup of coffee when you should be at home or at the hospital?" She looked away from me then, staring at a group of teenagers laughing near the pizza stand. "Terrence needed the Tahoe for a few days," she said, her voice dropping so low I had to lean in to hear her. "His truck has been having engine trouble, and he had a big meeting for a potential new job. I have been taking the bus. It is not so bad, Mama. It gives me time to think." She tried to laugh, but it sounded like glass breaking. I looked at her hands. They were raw and red, the nails bitten down to the quick. My Nia, who used to pride herself on her manicured hands, was falling apart right in front of me. "Why are you wearing a grocery store uniform, baby? You are a nurse. You have a degree." "I am just picking up some extra shifts," she said, and I could tell she was lying. I have known my daughter's lying face since she was 4 years old, and tried to tell me she did not eat the frosting off the sundae cake. She kept glancing at her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen, as if she was waiting for a command or a reprimand. "Nia," I said, reaching across the cold table to take her hand. Her fingers were like ice, despite the humidity of the afternoon. "Tell your mama what is happening. Tell me why my daughter is hiding in a mall food court looking like a fugitive." She pulled her hand back as if I had burned her. "Nothing is happening, Mama. We are just going through a rough patch. Everyone has them. I have to go now. The 3:15 bus is coming, and if I am not back by the time Terrence gets home, he will." She stopped herself, her eyes widening. "You will what, Nia?" I stood up as she did, my old instincts as an attorney screaming that there was a predator in the tall grass. "I will drive you home," I insisted. "No," she said, and the word was sharp, panicked, and desperate. "You cannot come to the house, Mama. Beatrice is staying with us, and she says I need to focus on being a better wife and mother without outside distractions." I watched her walk away, her shoulders hunched, blending into the crowd of shoppers. I stood there in that noisy food court, surrounded by the smell of grease and the sound of pop music, and I felt a cold, righteous anger beginning to boil in my marrow. I had spent 30 years protecting strangers from people who tried to steal their land and their legacy. I had seen every kind of wolf in sheep's clothing that the legal system had to offer. And I knew, with the certainty of a woman who had prayed over her child every night of her life, that Terrence and Beatrice were not just family, they were thieves. I did not go home. I drove straight to the neighborhood where Nia and Terrence had bought that beautiful brick ranch. I sat in my car down the street, hidden by the shade of a large oak tree. I waited. At 5:30 p.m., I saw the Tahoe, the one I had helped pay for, pull into the driveway. Terrence got out, looking well-fed and dressed in an expensive suit I did not recognize. A few minutes later, Beatrice stepped onto the porch, looking like the cat that had swallowed the canary. They were laughing. They looked like a couple, not a husband and a mother-in-law. But there was no sign of little Maya. And there was no sign of Nia. I watched as the garage door opened. To my horror, I saw a small corner of the garage had been partitioned off with a hanging sheet. There was a single light bulb burning inside. My heart stopped. I saw Nia walk up the driveway from the bus stop, her head down. She did not go through the front door. She went into the garage. She went behind that sheet. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. They had put my daughter in the garage like a piece of unwanted machinery. They had stripped her of her home, her dignity, and her daughter. I realized then that this was not just a marital dispute. This was a calculated, cold-blooded takeover. Beatrice and Terrence were playing a game of psychological warfare. And my Nia was losing because she was too kind to believe people could be this cruel. But they forgot one very important thing. Nia might be a nurse who heals, but I am an attorney who hunts. I picked up my phone and called the only person I knew who could find the dirt in a clean room, my old paralegal Auntie Joanne. "Joanne," I said, and my voice was as cold as a mountain stream. "I need every property record, every bank statement, and every forged signature associated with Terrence Reynolds and his mother. We are going to war." Let me pause for just a second. This part of the story is where things start to get heavier, and I want you to stay with me for it. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. It keeps you close while I take you through the rest of this. And if something in this stirred a memory in you, tell me in the comments. After that, press like so this story does not disappear into the feed. The next morning, I met Marcus, a private investigator who had worked for my firm for 2 decades. We sat in a small diner on the outskirts of town, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon hanging in the air. "Marcus," I said, sliding a photo of Terrence across the table. "I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, and exactly how he is spending my daughter's nursing salary." Marcus nodded, his eyes grim. I have seen this before, Helen, he said. It is called coercive control. They isolate them, take their money, and use the children as a leash. I will get you what you need. By Friday, the evidence started pouring in, and it was worse than I had imagined. Joanne found that the deed to the house that was supposed to be in both Nia and Terrence's names, had been altered. A quitclaim deed had been filed 6 months ago, removing Nia's name and transferring her interest to a trust controlled by Beatrice. The signature on that document was a masterpiece of forgery, but it was not Nia's. I knew her signature better than I knew my own. I had taught her how to write her name when she was a little girl. Then came the bank records. Terrence had opened a secret account and had been redirecting Nia's paychecks into it. He had convinced her that they were in massive debt and that she needed to hand over everything to save the family. He had even taken out a credit card in her name and maxed it out to lower her credit score, making it impossible for her to rent an apartment on her own. It was a financial prison, and the bars were made of lies and forged ink. Why do some people feel the need to destroy the person who provides for them? Is it out of a sense of inadequacy? Or is it just pure, unadulterated greed? But the most heartbreaking piece of evidence came from Marcus. He had captured video of the backyard. He saw Beatrice sitting on a lawn chair, holding little Maya's hand. He heard Beatrice telling that precious 4-year-old child that her mama was sick in the head, and that was why she had to sleep in the garage. He heard her tell Maya that if she tried to go to her mama at night, the boogeyman would take them both away. I cried when I saw that video. I cried tears of hot, stinging rage. They were poisoning the well of my granddaughter's soul. I met Nia again at the mall the following Tuesday. She looked even thinner, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. Nia, I said, leaning in close. I know about the garage. I know about the deed. I know about the money. She froze, a spoonful of soup halfway to her mouth. She started to shake, and then she simply broke. The sobs were silent, but they racked her entire body. They told me they would take her, Mama, she whispered. Beatrice has a cousin who is a judge. She said if I tried to leave, they would tell the court I am an unfit mother, and I would never see Maya again. I took her hands in mine, and looked her straight in the eyes. I have been a member of the North Carolina bar for over 30 years, Nia. I know every judge in this county, and I know the law better than Beatrice knows how to lie. They have committed multiple felonies. They have forged documents, committed bank fraud, and are engaging in child endangerment and psychological abuse. You are not going back to that garage. You are coming home with me, and we are going to the courthouse. But I cannot just leave Maya. Nia cried, her voice rising in a moment of sheer panic. We are not leaving her, I said, my voice as steady as an oak tree. We are going to get an emergency custody order, and a restraining order that will remove them from that house before the sun sets today. I have the best family law attorney in the state waiting for us. Her name is Vanessa, and she owes me a very large favor. We are going to remind Terrence and his mother that they did not just marry into a family. They tried to rob a fortress. The walk into the courthouse that afternoon felt like a slow-motion dream. Nia was still in her scrubs, her face pale but determined. I walked beside her, my heels clicking on the marble floor, my briefcase heavy with the evidence Marcus and Joanne had gathered. We met Vanessa in the hallway. She looked at the photos of the garage, the forged signatures, and the video of Beatrice talking to little Maya. Her face went tight and hard. This is not just a divorce case, she said. This is a criminal enterprise. We are going to see Judge Miller right now. Judge Miller was a man I had known since he was a young prosecutor. He sat on his bench, looking down at the evidence we presented that I watched his face as he watched the video of little Maya in the backyard. I saw his jaw set. He looked at the forged quitclaim deed and the bank records showing the theft of Nia's income. This is an abomination, he said, his voice echoing in the nearly empty courtroom. He signed the emergency orders with such force that I thought the pen might snap. He looked at Nia and said, "Go get your daughter, Mrs. Reynolds. The police are on their way to meet you." We arrived at the house on Willow Creek Way just as the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. 2 police cruisers were already parked in the driveway. Terrence came to the door first, looking annoyed and arrogant. "What is this?" he demanded, looking at the officers. "You cannot be here. This is private property." One of the officers, a tall man with a no-nonsense expression, stepped forward. "We have a court order, Mr. Reynolds. You and your mother have 1 hour to pack a single suitcase each and vacate these premises." Beatrice came screaming out of the house then, her face contorted with a mask of fake outrage. "This is my house. I have the deed," she yelled. I stepped forward then, out from behind the officers. I looked her right in her cold, calculating eyes. "You have a forged piece of paper, Beatrice," I said. "And you have a one-way ticket to a felony grand larceny charge if you do not get off this porch right now. My daughter is going inside to get her child. And if you so much as breathe in her direction, these officers will have you in handcuffs before you can say in-law suite." Nia did not look at them. She ran past them into the house, her heart leading the way. A moment later, we heard a joyful scream from upstairs. "Mommy! Mommy!" Little Maya came flying down the stairs and into Nia's arms. They collapsed onto the floor together, weeping and clinging to each other, as if they were the only 2 people left in the world. I stood on the porch and watched Terrence and Beatrice being escorted to their cars, their belongings shoved into plastic trash bags. They looked small. They looked pathetic. They looked like the thieves they were. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal battles and healing. Terrence tried to fight the custody order, but when Vanessa presented the evidence of the forgery and the financial abuse to his own lawyer, the man nearly walked out of the room. He told Terrence that he would be lucky to avoid prison time, let alone get visitation. In the end, Terrence signed over everything, the house, the Tahoe, and a significant portion of his future earnings just to stay out of a jumpsuit. Beatrice was forced to move into a tiny apartment across town, her reputation in the community shattered. But the real victory was watching Nia come back to life. She moved back into her home, and I spent every weekend there, helping her reclaim the space. We repainted the walls, replaced the furniture Beatrice had touched, and turned that garage into a beautiful, sunlit playroom for little Maya. Nia went back to her nursing job, her head held high once again. The dark circles disappeared, replaced by the glow of a woman who knew she was safe and loved. Have you ever seen a flower bloom after a long, cold winter? That was my daughter. I remember sitting in the backyard with Nia 6 months later, watching little Maya play on the new swing set we had installed. The oak tree was heavy with green leaves, and the air was sweet with the smell of jasmine. "Mama," Nia said, taking a sip of her tea, "I do not think I would have survived if you had not seen me that day at the mall." I looked at her, my beautiful, strong daughter, and I smiled. "You would have survived, baby," I said. "But you would not have had to fight alone. That is what a mother is for. We are the ones who stay awake so our children can sleep." Before I close this story, let me say this. Telling stories like this takes something out of me. And if you found any meaning in it, subscribe to Voices of Emily, so we stay connected for the next one. Then share a comment with your thoughts or your experience. I read every one because your perspective matters more than you think. And if this story left an imprint on you, tap the like button, so it reaches someone who might be walking through their own version of it tonight. Family is not just about the blood that runs through your veins. It is about the loyalty that keeps you standing when the world tries to knock you down. It is about the courage to speak the truth when someone tries to drown you in lies. Terrence and Beatrice thought they could break my daughter because she was kind, But they forgot that she was raised by a woman who knows that kindness is not weakness. We are home now, and the doors are locked against the wolves. We are at peace,